Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're looking at a text called "The Illusion of External Will Change Your Perception of Reality."
Wow.
Yeah, it's a mouthful,
Yeah.
but it's packed with thought-provoking stuff about, you know, perception, happiness, inner peace.
Yeah, this one really gets to the core of how we're living. It kind of throws down a gauntlet and challenges the idea that we're going to find happiness in achievements and possessions.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We've all had that, like, new phone feeling, right?
Oh,
When you get the new
yeah.
phone and you're so excited, and then, like, 10
Yeah.
days later,
Old
yeah,
news.
what's the next thing? What's the next thing? So what is going on there? If it's not actually the external stuff, what is the key to lasting happiness?
Well, this text is saying that happiness can only be cultivated internally and that it doesn't depend on anything outside of us.
Okay, so that's a pretty big statement.
Yeah.
But is there is this just a nice idea or is there actual science behind it?
Oh, it's absolutely backed up by psychology.
Mm,
Things like hedonic adaptation, which is basically just the idea that even when something really good happens to us, we just adapt to it.
mm. Okay, it's all. So like we get a raise at work and we're like, yes. But
Then
that,
your baseline just goes up and you're right back where you started.
so even if we achieve all of our goals, we're still not going to be happy.
Well, it's not quite that simple, but this
Mm-mm.
text is saying that we need to look a little deeper and figure out why we're so obsessed with those external things to begin with.
It really is a paradox because it makes sense from like an evolutionary perspective that,
Oh, yeah.
back in the caveman days, getting more stuff meant survival.
Right.
But now we have so much abundance, and yet we're still driven to accumulate, even when it's not actually fulfilling us.
Exactly. And you can see this playing out in the world.
Yeah.
You've got people with wealth and status and a perfect Instagram life, and they're completely miserable.
Totally.
And then you have people who seemingly have nothing, and they're just radiating joy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. And it makes you realize that, yeah, happiness really does come from within.
Right. And this text wants us to look even deeper into that internal state of being. It's suggesting that even our thoughts and emotions,
Wait, even our thoughts.
yeah, even our thoughts and emotions are part of this illusion.
Okay, now that is mind-bending. I get how you can get sucked into like negative thought spirals, but are you saying that all thoughts are part of the illusion?
The text uses the analogy of thoughts being like passing clouds. We
Yeah.
wouldn't cling to a cloud and say, this is the whole sky, right?
Right.
But we do that with our thoughts all the time.
Yeah, because we get so attached to them and we believe that they're the absolute truth.
Exactly.
So are you saying that we need to like learn to observe our thoughts without judgment? Like not get so caught up in them?
That's the idea, and that's where the practice of mindfulness comes in.
Okay, so mindfulness.
Yeah, mindfulness is not about emptying your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's about becoming aware of those thoughts as they arise and noticing that there's actually a space between the thought and your reaction to it.
Ah, so we have a choice in how we respond.
Exactly.
Instead of just being like, oh no, this is terrible and freaking out.
Yeah, it's about hitting that pause button and choosing a different path.
So like if I'm thinking, ugh, this meeting's going to be a disaster,
Right.
I could pause and say, okay, this meeting might be challenging, but I'm prepared and I'm going to go in with a positive attitude.
Exactly. You're choosing a different lens.
I like that, a different lens.
And that leads us to another key idea in this text, that perception really acts as a lens shaping our whole experience.
Like the rainy day example they use, right?
Yeah.
One person sees it as gloomy, another person is like, oh, great, my garden needed this.
Right. The same event, but totally different experiences based on each person's perception.
It's almost like those optical illusions where some people see one thing and others see something totally different.
Yeah. Exactly. And it makes you wonder how much of what we call reality is actually shaped by our own filters, our biases, our past experiences.
So can we actually shift our perception? Can we choose to see things differently?
Well, that's what we're going to explore in part 2. So we were just talking about how our perceptions really shape our experience of the world. But what if we could actually choose a different lens? Can we change how we see things?
That's the million-dollar question. And this text seems to think we can. So I'm really curious to hear, like, what are the actual steps? How do we do that?
Well, it all starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Just noticing those automatic reactions and interpretations that we have that often lead to suffering.
So like becoming more aware of our thought patterns and how they're influencing our emotions.
Exactly. And mindfulness is a really powerful tool for that.
Okay, mindfulness again.
Yeah, but it's presented here in a way that's actually really accessible. A lot of people think of meditation as this big, intimidating thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, am I doing it right? Is my mind supposed to be totally blank?
Right. And this text reframes meditation as a practice of just gentle observation, noticing those thoughts and feelings as they come up without judging them.
So it's not about, like, forcing our minds to be quiet.
Not at all. It's just about becoming more aware of what's already there.
Oh, okay. So it's like creating that space between ourselves and our thoughts.
Perfect analogy. And the text even gives some really simple techniques for people who are new to meditation, like focusing on your breath,
Oh, yeah, that's a classic one.
just noticing the rise and fall of your chest, the flow of air in and out.
And if your mind wanders, which it always does, you just gently bring it back to the breath.
No judgment, just a gentle redirection.
I can already feel myself relaxing.
It's amazing how powerful such a simple practice can be.
And the text is saying that we can take this mindfulness practice beyond just sitting on a cushion, right?
Absolutely. It's about bringing that same awareness to everything we do.
So like when we're eating, walking, working, interacting with people.
It's about being fully present in each moment.
It sounds like a shift from doing to being almost.
Yeah, instead of rushing through your to-do list, you're actually savoring each experience, each interaction.
That's a really beautiful concept, but I imagine it takes a lot of practice.
It does, but the text gives us some practical tips, like just setting aside a few minutes each day to sit and observe your thoughts and feelings.
Oh, I like that it's like taking your mental temperature throughout the day.
Exactly. And what about those times when we do get swept away by our emotions? We're human after all.
Yeah, that definitely happens. What do we do then?
The text talks about the power of journaling. Putting our thoughts and feelings down on paper can really help us process them and gain clarity.
It's like having a conversation with yourself.
And sometimes just the act of writing it down helps you see things from a different perspective.
And you don't have to spend hours journaling, right?
No, even 5 or 10 minutes a day can make a difference. The key is consistency.
So we're building that muscle of self-awareness.
Exactly.
This is all starting to feel really empowering. Like we're not just victims of our circumstances or our emotions. We actually have the power to shape our inner world.
That's the whole point. It's about reclaiming that power. And the text goes even further and encourages us to seek out wisdom from others, to learn from teachers and philosophies that resonate with us.
So like reading books, listening to podcasts like this one, talking to wise friends.
Exactly. It's about continuously nourishing our minds with ideas that inspire us and challenge our perspectives.
It's like we're building a toolbox of wisdom that we can draw on when we need it.
I love that analogy. And this ongoing learning keeps us open to new possibilities, prevents us from getting stuck in rigid thinking.
Okay, so this is all about personal growth. But I'm curious, how do these concepts about perception and inner freedom actually translate into better relationships with other people?
Well, the text says that when we cultivate self-awareness and inner peace, it naturally spills over into our relationships.
So it's not just about me, myself, and I.
Not at all. It's about fostering a more harmonious way of relating to the whole world.
I like that. And I'm guessing that this shift in perspective leads to deeper connections with people.
Absolutely. Greater empathy, more fulfilling relationships. But there's a lot more to unpack here, and we'll dive into those ideas further in part 3.
Okay, so we've been talking about how our perceptions shape reality and how mindfulness can help us, create space for conscious choice. But this text takes us even deeper into this idea of true nature or the true self.
Right. It's getting at something really fundamental here.
Yeah, it's like there's this whole other dimension to who we are, this core essence that goes beyond our, job titles and relationships and all the stories we tell ourselves about who we are.
And this text is saying that underneath all of that, underneath the thoughts and emotions and experiences, there's this deeper self that's unchanging and eternal.
So it's like the soul or the spirit.
Yeah, a lot of different spiritual traditions talk about this concept.
Okay, but why do we actually access this true self? It seems like it's not something we can just think our way into.
The text points to deep meditation as a key practice for connecting with this deeper dimension. It's about quieting the mind and letting go of all those external identifiers and just observing what remains.
Wow, so we're peeling away all those layers, our job title, our relationships, our personality even, and what's left? Is it just emptiness?
Well, the text describes it as this sense of pure awareness, a state of being that's not defined by any qualities or attributes. It's just stillness, a presence that observes without judgment.
It's like we're stepping back from the screen of our minds and becoming aware of this vast space behind it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
But I'm curious, how does this realization actually change how we live our lives?
Well, the text suggests that it can be profoundly transformative. When we start to identify more with this unchanging essence and less with the dramas of our minds, we become less reactive to external circumstances.
So we're not as easily thrown off balance by things.
Exactly. We find this inner stability that doesn't depend on things going our way.
It's like we found an anchor in the midst of a storm.
And from that place of stability, we can act with more clarity, compassion, purpose. We're not driven by the ego's need for approval anymore.
So it's like a whole different way of being in the world.
Right, and it's not something that happens overnight. It's a lifelong journey of self-discovery.
So we're constantly peeling away those layers of conditioning and limiting beliefs that keep us from experiencing our true nature.
It's about cultivating awareness, moment by moment, and allowing ourselves to be transformed by that awareness.
And it's not just about us as individuals.
No, this transformation ripples out into our relationships as well.
So when we connect with our own true nature, we start to see it reflected in others.
Exactly. It's like we're recognizing that shared humanity that connects us all,
It's like we're shifting from judgment to curiosity.
from separation to connection.
And I imagine that this shift can also change how we approach challenges and difficulties.
Absolutely. When we're grounded in that awareness of our true nature, we don't get so thrown off balance by life's ups and downs.
So we can handle success and failure, praise and criticism with more grace.
And the text isn't saying that we won't experience difficult emotions anymore,
Right, we're still human.
but we can learn to relate to them differently. We can observe them with a sense of detachment, knowing that they're temporary.
So we can experience the full spectrum of human emotions without being ruled by them.
That's the freedom that the text is pointing to, the freedom that comes from living from our true nature.
Wow, this has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the illusion of the external world to the power of perception to mindfulness to the idea of true nature.
It's been a really rich exploration, and I want to thank our listener for sharing this text with us.
Me too. It sparked a conversation that I know will continue long after this episode ends.
May these insights inspire us all to keep exploring and questioning and deepening our connection to our true selves.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you for joining us for another deep dive.